Hey guys, welcome to another video in the Frsky series. And today I wanted to talk about flaps, setting up flaps the way that I do. A lot of people use a 3-position switch for the flaps, flaps up, flaps mid, and flaps full. I prefer to use a slider, and unfortunately using a slider makes it just a hair more complicated, but I think it's worth it. I like having the ease of access of knowing exactly where my flap switch is, and especially since I use it a lot. I don't just use it for landing. I like doing slow passes with flaps. So for me, it's nice having it on the slider. All right, so we're going to get into that. First of all, this is my tandem XE radio. And the XE, everything I do here should be the same if you're running the Ethos operating system. So what I'm setting up here should work on other ones. Over here on the sides, I have 2 servos. The one with the blue line on it will be my elevator servo. There it is. And then the one with the red will be representing a flap. All right, so let's get into this. So this radio is bound, of course, to that receiver. I did the normal setup using the wizard that it comes with. So this is just a basic setup. I have 1 flap and 1 elevator. All right, let's take a look at this. So let's go over here to model. Let's go into mixer. Okay, take a look over here. So your ailerons, elevator, throttle, and rudder are pre-set up with the channels and also the sticks. Flaps is set up. They assigned a channel to it. So over there it says channel 5. I did plug my servo into channel 5. And if you notice, that source is blank. So let's go ahead and fix that right now. Okay, so here's my input. I'm going to go ahead and assign it to this, and now it's assigned to my slider. Take a look now. Okay, so it looks like a couple of things. Number one, what they do when they set up flaps and they give you this template that you adjust is they go down over here. See how it says weight 30? So they take the entire range and drop it down to 30%. And the reason why they do that is they don't want you to bind up your servo if the limits are past the mechanical limit. So let's just say you at flaps fully up, if it was at 100%, it may be binding against it because it can't go up any higher, and it'll overheat your servo and burn out your servo. So they always start at 30%. That's the first thing. So go ahead and you can check it. So let's go ahead and crank that up. Okay. And what I would do is I would go, the other thing, take a look. So my flaps up is in this position, and then flaps down is in that position, and it looks like I'm backwards in this particular setup. Let's go ahead and change that. So I like to do that. The best place, I think, if I do any reversing, I try to do it at the output. Unless there's some weird special reason why I wouldn't. Most of the time, if it's a very basic setup, I will definitely use my output. Okay, let's take a look over here. Let's just go ahead and invert that. And let's take a look. There's flaps up, flaps half, and flaps full. Okay, so now we can go ahead and adjust that. I'm going to go back to my mixer, go to my flaps, edit it, and then now I can crank this up. So let's go ahead and crank this up to probably 100%. So I'm going to go ahead and go full up there, and I want this to go up. So if I increase that weight over here, now it'll go up. And in this particular case, I'll go up to 100%. And that's my flap fully off. And then I come down here, take a look, and there's my flap half and my flap full. Now, the other thing is I want to now adjust this because this is a little bit too much flap. Okay, that's a lot of flap. So I'm probably going to have full somewhere around here, and I'm probably going to have half somewhere around here. What's the best way to do that? So because it's linear, you don't want to just do endpoints and center. You want the travel, this to be halfway in the halfway position. So what I suggest to do is to set up a curve. So over here, go into the curve menu, click over there and add a curve. Okay, now what's really nice is as I set this up, that curve is already applied to that channel, so you can see what it does. I'm going to go ahead and do this one, and I'm going to call it, I don't know, flap limit. Yep. Not good with a soft keyboard. Okay, let's take a look. So it's flat limit. Let's make that type. We'll make that custom. And I'm going to do 3 positions, or 3 points. So the points are going to be here, here, and here. Middle position corresponds with middle, and first position corresponds with that one. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. Oops, let's go back to 3, turn that off, and then points config. We'll go to the top of the range, and point 1, we're going to adjust it. Okay, it normally would be this, but because we've reversed it, it's the other one. It's on the other side. So we reversed that channel. It's actually this. So point 3 is the first position. Let's go ahead and check that out. Yep. So I'm fully up. And then now I can come over here and I can go, okay, let's just say 100% is fine for this one. But this is a nice way to limit it. If you just have to, bring it down just a bit so that it's not mechanically hitting the limits, you can do that, and boom, 94% right there. But in our case right now, let's just say 100% is perfect. Now we can go to the middle position. Let's go to the end position. So on the end position, which is this one over here, I can now adjust it. So here, that was the full. Now we can bring it back, and let's just say that much flaps is my full on flaps. Now I can go between the two, and looking at this, as long as I can make it exactly halfway between that by making this an exactly straight line. There it goes. So now let's take a look at our flaps. There's my halfway point, there's my off, and you can adjust that. So if you want half to be a little bit more, it's nice. This is a really nice way to do it because you could do whatever you want, adjust it over here. Now, the other thing you can do is notice that there's that little dip. What you can do if you want, you can go ahead and put a smooth in it. And so it's sort of smooth between the two curves. But I'm going to go ahead and turn smooth off, and I'm just going to make this as straight of a line as I can. I could do it with math, but I'm just going to look at the picture. Somewhere around there. So let's take a look. There's my flap closed, there's my half, and there's my full. Nice, easy way to do it is use curves. I do suggest that if you guys aren't used to curves, oh man, there's so many uses for them that are great. Helicopter guys definitely know them. They got to set them up, their throttle curves and everything else. But for us plane guys, there are plenty of uses for curves. So, all right, so now I'm set over here. The next thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and set up a flap to elevator mix. So the flap to elevator mix is going to be controlled by this. So it's the elevator controlled by this. That's going to make the elevator go up or down depending on how much you need. So if for example you balloon up, then you want down elevator and more down elevator and more down elevator once you move that switch. And you do want that linear. So let's go ahead and set that up now. So this is all set. Okay, I come over here, anywhere in the menu, doesn't really matter where, tap over there, hit add a mix. I'm going to do a free mix. I think there is a flap to elevator mix. I like using free mixes for everything. And now take a look at this menu. It says add after. Where do I want to put that? I want to put it right after the elevator. So I'm going to click there, and I'm going to call it flap to elevator. Yeah, let's add a space there. There it goes. Active condition always on. Source. What do I want to control it? I want this to control it. What do I want to control? I want to control the elevator. So one channel is correct, and I come down here and I want it to control the elevator. So now when I move this switch, there it goes. So obviously that's way too much. And there's a couple of things. First of all, that's my neutral position right there. And that neutral position is where I want to be at the start of the range. So up here, I want that elevator to be there. But because this mix is using the full range, it does that. That's number one. Number two, you definitely don't want that much. Like if you just want a 10% flap to elevator, let's go ahead and do that. Let's do a 10% flap to elevator mix. Okay, so we do a weight up and down. We'll make this 10%. And this will tell me if I have to be minus or positive in 1 second. So you'll see what I mean in a second. Okay. All right, there's my 10%. That's better. Now, as the flaps go down, the plane balloons up. I need that to go down. I need that to go the opposite direction. So check this out. Let's take that and make that minus 10. Okay, let's make this one minus 10. Okay, let's take a look. Now it goes down, the elevator goes down as it goes. The only problem is that now, if you take a look, it's not in the center at the top. So you just have to adjust your offset. If you had a weight of 10 and it's a minus 10, you do a positive offset, it'll put it back in the center. So a positive offset of 10 will now put it from center. So if you notice over here, that's the start. Now it's at 0 where my elevator was. And it just, let me do this so you can see it. It just gradually applies more and more elevator as you go into the flap. That's it. This works, and you can just input, you can do a flight, say, okay, that was a little bit too much down elevator, so I can make that 5%. You know, like you can sort of get an idea, and then you can fly again. But another thing that you can do is you can do it in the air. So that I change these numbers, that 10%, instead of being 10%, it's a variable number that I change in the air. So let's go ahead and do that. So this is going to be much simpler on a radio like this or the T18 that has extra trims. I'm going to do it the way with this radio. First, that has the extra trims, and then I'll show you how to do it on the other radios like the X20 that does not have the extra trim. There's a couple of ways that you can do this, okay? So let's go ahead and set this up as if I have an extra trim. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a variable. So in the mixer over here, let's add a variable. And let's put it right after the flap to elevator. So that way I know what it is. I'm going to call it variable. I'll keep it variable. Okay, now instead of weight, I'm going to go ahead and use a source. The source I'm going to use is going to be T5. Okay, so for whatever reason it doesn't allow you to, you have to go in here and do it manually, get to it manually. Okay, with the variable, in order to activate it, you have to put it onto a channel. We're going to put it on a dummy channel. So it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to put it here on channel 64 because I'm never going to use channel 64. And it's just a dummy channel to put this variable somewhere. Okay, so let's take a look at this now. Take a look over there. So this is how you create a number, and the number is being changed by the trim. Okay, so that's created now. We've got a variable of T5, which is a variable, it's on channel 64. What we do now is go to the flap to elevator mix, come over here, and instead of putting this in here, the offset number, and notice and remember this one's positive and this ones are negative. So let's go over here and we're going to use a source. And the source that I want to use is a channel. The channel that I want is that variable, which is on channel 64. Now let's go to the weight up. do the same thing. Oops, I'm hitting the wrong buttons. Use a source. The source that I want is a channel. Channel 64. Okay, and weight down, same thing. Hit and hold. Use a source. Source that I want. Channel. Channel 64. So channel 64 is just creating a number for me, essentially, that is controlled by trim. All right, so the only difference now is, remember, before when we checked it, the offset was a positive number and the weight up and down were negative numbers. So I got to make these into negative numbers. Options, negative. Option. I think I was doing that fast. I'm going to do it again. So over here, come over here, hit and hold down. Go down to option and negative. There it goes. So that's it. The trim 5 is now controlling that number on channel 64. And now I can adjust that to give me
trim center. Trim center.
up and down.
Trim center.
So I can adjust this now.
Trim center.
Here's up and down.
Trim center.
So I can, in flight, activate my flaps, realize that, oh, I'm giving it a lot of down, feed it down, plane's good. All right, there we go, I'm good. And that should be pretty close, the amount for the half flap position and their off position. And if you need to, you can do a curve if you feel that you need more or less in the mid position. If you want to, you can do a curve. But I haven't found it necessary. I found that if I set up the full and I got that adjusted, the half is good as long as they're, you know, pretty close to being halfway on the mechanical of the flap, if that makes sense. So there you go. Instead of using a number, I used a variable. The variable has to be assigned to a channel. After I assign it to a channel, I make that the number, the offset, and a weight, up and down. So I checked it beforehand. I arbitrarily used 10%, and I saw which way it went, and I realized that the offset number has to be the positive number, and then the other ones have to be negative. And that's it. It's very, very basic. This is a nice way to do flaps. I like it. I like flying around and just hitting my flaps really quick over here and then hitting it again for full, bringing it back. It's just so much easier for me. And my offset set, and I can trim it in the air. All right, so that's it. The only thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to show, for those that have the T or the X20 radio, I'll show you how to set it up. So this trim over here is throttle trim, and a lot of us who fly electric airplanes, we never adjust the trim on our throttle. So we can go ahead and use that for my elevator, flap to elevator mix trim. All right. So that's it, guys. Thank you very much. And for those with X20, go ahead and stick around. Okay, we're back. Okay, so just backed up. I just backed up a couple steps and just deleted it. So right now I've still got my flaps set with my slider on the left, and I still have my elevator over here. So the difference is now, in order to use trim 3, is you do want to disable that trim. So right now that trim is bound and set to my throttle. So there's a couple ways you can do it. Is if you were to redo your throttle, so delete this and just do it as a free mix on throttle, then you'll unbind it from T3, which is a throttle trim. I like to leave it there so that way I'm not messing with the throttle cut. I don't have to make another throttle cut. I can use a throttle cut that's in there. What I like to do is I come over here and go to my trims. Go down to my throttle trim and see where it says step, fine. Disable it. Now, once it's disabled, that trim is no longer used. And listen to that, you've got no more beeps because that trim is disabled. You can re-enable it a different way. Sort of like how, what we did with our variable. Let's come over here. Let's add a mix. Go to trim. Okay, I'm going to put that right after elevator. And let's change the label to maybe what, flat trim? Okay, flat to elevator trim. After condition always on. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to use that. Trim left vertical up.
Trim center.
Trim left vertical down. I don't know why they didn't just call it trim 3. It would make it sing so much better. And you have the same controls that you do on the other trim page, except now you have it in mix. So this reactivated the mix, but it's disabled for throttle. It's almost the same thing.
Trim center.
And you can change the range again. You can make it 50%. You can do the steps as fine or medium. I think medium's good, but for now, let's leave it on fine, but whatever you want to do. But now you do have to assign it an output. So same thing as we did for variable. We're going to assign it a dummy output. And we're going to do the same thing. Channel 64, I think, would work fine. And doesn't have a name. Do you want to copy? Yep. Okay. So now it is now assigned to channel 64. Now we can come over here. Let's go ahead and create a flap to elevator. Okay. Add mix, free mix, and right after elevator again. And let's go over here, call it FLP to, oops, that one, elevator. Flap to elevator mix. Always on, source will be this. And I want to go ahead and assign it to my elevator channel. So this is now not just controlling my flap, but it's also controlling my elevator. Same thing. And if I remember correctly, the offset was the positive number for this particular setup, and the weight up and down was a negative number. So now we come over here and do the same thing we did before and use a source. The source that I want to use is a channel. The channel that I want is channel 64. And for my weight, same thing. Whoops, I got to hit and hold down. Choose a source. The source that I want is going to be a channel 64. And this one, weight down, same thing. Use a source. The source that I want is a channel. And the channel that I want is 64. So that's a dummy channel, channel 64, that has my when I move my trim, it'll go ahead and change the number. And if I remember correctly, we've got offset was a positive number and the weight up and down were negatives to make this work right. So, oops, I want to hit and hold down, go to option and change it to negative. Next one, hit and hold down, option, change to negative. All right, let's take a look and see if this worked. So I've got my flap up and there's my flap down. And as I fly, I'm now using my throttle trim, which is now deactivated from my throttle. And now it is just for this. I need some down trim. I need a little bit more down trim, a little bit more down trim. There it is. And then now if I was to, I'll do it this way so you can see it. And there's my down mix. And it's linear. For whatever reason, so if you were to use that trim mix, your trim steps take longer. So for example, if I move this, see that? It just takes longer to do. So what I'd suggest is maybe changing it from fine to medium, like amount of of adjustment. So if you come over here to that mix, trim, this one over here, let's edit it. Okay, and the range, I think 25% is probably enough, but you can probably crank that up if you want a little bit, maybe 40%. And instead of fine, make it medium, and it'll make it, because these steps for whatever reason happen slower, it'll probably make it a little bit easier to control this. But that's pretty much it. Let's take a look. Let's look at our output and we can see what's happening. So mixer, output over here, you've got 0. Your elevators go to its default position of 0. And if I was to give it more, it'll give me more and more down elevator. You see that? All right, so that is it. I'm sorry for the guys who are running X20s without the extra trim to make it 100 times easier. But it's still not that bad. It's really not that hard to do this. But anyways, if you guys found this useful, please like and subscribe. If somebody has a different way of doing this, I'm open to learning what you guys do as well. If you use like a slider as well, but you have a different way of doing your setup. There's really a lot of different ways you can set stuff like this up. And that's what's nice about using an operating system like this that has a lot of power, is you're not tied to the way that they want you to do it. So anyways, that's it. Like and subscribe, and that does help. I do watch your comments, and have a good day, guys. Bye.